All right, guys, thank you so much for getting on this webinar tonight. Also getting on the call as well. We have our special guest here. As you can see, Dr. Stuart Titus is with us live, and we are excited for him, especially I know he is a busy, busy man out there sharing the CBD movement across the country, actually across the world, and we're super excited for having him. What I'm going to go ahead and do, Dr. Titus, I'm going to put your slide up, get you all set up.
All right, very good.
And thank you again, guys. We're super excited for having you guys on this webinar tonight. While I'm putting this up, we're going to go ahead and have this call recorded tonight. We'll be able to post this later on. All right, let me go ahead and give this to Mr. Titus.
Yeah,
awesome, sir. Go ahead and take it away.
Fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. A great pleasure to be with you this evening. My name is Stuart Titus. I'm the President and Chief Executive Officer of Cannaway's parent company, Medical Marijuana Incorporated. Medical Marijuana Inc., or MJNA, as we trade on the OTC markets, and our ticker symbol again, MJNA, has been public since March of 2009, and I became involved with the company just as an investor initially, and over time I've taken on obviously a more significant role with the company. March of 2011, we had a new group come in who'd been researching CBD for many years prior. They bought the company from the original founders and moved forward in the direction of hemp-based CBD, or cannabidiol. And this is an amazing product, totally non-psychoactive with some tremendous therapeutic potential. Our main company, Medical Marijuana Inc., has 4 divisions that are in nutraceutical sales and dedicated to the sales of these hemp CBD products. Of course, our flagship company, which was founded back in 2012, Hemp Meds, and then Cannaway being founded April of 2014, another one of our sales divisions. We also have 2 divisions that are in pharmaceutical development, Axim Biotechnologies, which trades under the ticker symbol AXIM, as well as Cannalife Sciences, which hopefully will be public sometime before the end of the year. Cannalife has 2 license agreements from our National Institutes of Health to develop cannabinoid-based pharmaceutical medications. Anyway, I just want to give you a brief introduction to some of the medicinal benefits of CBD and cannabis, where the industry is, the difference between hemp and marijuana. And of course, many of you have been around for many months here and be on my regular webinars. But many of you are new people, and so let's try to bring everyone up to speed and get everyone a good bit of education. So really starting with cannabis and the cannabis plant family, cannabis has been used medicinally for thousands of years. It's really since the beginning of recorded history, about 8,000 BC, and we've showed tremendous benefit in China with hemp oils and tinctures and various preparations being used medicinally. I believe the next slide, I have a picture of a recent trip to Amsterdam, where I actually was able to take pictures of some cannabis-based preparations. And these are pharmaceutical preparations that were available in the US going back to the late 1800s and early 1900s. Companies such as Eli Lilly and other large pharmaceutical companies developed these medications. And then these little bottles and jars and the rest, they're actual live cannabis preparations that have been preserved throughout the years. And it's been unfortunate that the Marijuana Tax Act back in 1937 basically kind of put an end to the use of cannabis as a medicine. It was removed from the US Pharmacopoeia in 1942, and this is a listing of all the pharmaceutical medications available throughout the country. And unfortunately, it's been now classified by our regulatory authorities, Drug Administration, Drug Enforcement Administration, et cetera, as a Schedule 1 federally controlled substance with no medicinal value, but we like to believe otherwise. So just to give you a rough idea of some of the very basics The cannabis plant itself, we might be considered the parent plant. And from this cannabis plant family, we have two offspring. One side, industrial hemp, with a tremendous amount of industrial uses. Hemp grows very tall, as high as 10 to 20 feet in height in a very short 90 to 120 day growing season. And again, around the world has a tremendous amount of industrial uses. Its fiber is used in textile. It's also used for bioplastic and biocomposite purposes. Hemp seed itself is very nutritious, used for food. Hemp seed oil, hemp protein powder found around the globe, and certainly available here in the US since about the year 1998, various hemp food products. Now, marijuana, on the other side, is another derivative from the cannabis plant family, but here it contains a very high concentration of THC, which is your psychoactive cannabinoid. And basically, it grows very short and bushy. It's grown for its psychoactive effect, and there's no real industrial use. I believe the next slide, we'll see that marijuana is legal now in 30 US states for medicinal use, along with doctor recommendation. There are 17 US states that actually have legal, what's called CBD only laws on their books. So parents here don't have to move to Colorado. They can stay in their home state, possess a high concentration CBD with also a high enough concentration THC in it, which normally would land the parents in jail, but they can legally possess this in these CBD only states, if you will, and thus not have to move to Colorado to get product to their children who might be suffering from conditions such as epilepsy. Now, industrial hemp, we mentioned all the tremendous industrial uses. Certainly it's non-psychoactive and can be grown for a very high concentration of the non-psychoactive cannabinoid called cannabidiol, or CBD. So here in the difference, your psychoactive versus non-psychoactive. So moving forward in the presentation, we're looking to define what are cannabinoids, and basically these are extracts that come from the cannabis plant family. It's interesting to note that many other plants you can find cannabinoids, things such as flax, hops, echinacea, common tea, kava, all will contain cannabinoids. And it's very interesting that these cannabinoids do seem to have some amazing therapeutic value. Now, our products that we regularly sell and market contain, of course, a high concentration of CBD, but also have a good variety and array of different cannabinoids. And currently, there are about 80 different cannabinoids that we can find in our current products. And as many as 146 different cannabinoids have actually been named and identified according to the latest research. And then there are other plant constituents, things such as flavonoids and terpenoids that also have very interesting therapeutic properties. On the bottom here, we have a little description of one of the terpenoids, beta-carotene, that does seem to carry cannabinoid-like properties in terms of its therapeutic attributes. And then moving forward to our next slide, this has just a nice picture description of some of the plant materials and other constituents that you'll find in the cannabis plant family. These are, of course, your cannabinoids, your terpenoids, and your flavonoids. The terpenoids give the characteristic smell, if you will. The flavonoids give the characteristic flavor. This might be what makes blueberries blue or strawberries red. And certainly we're very excited because there's certain flavonoids that are characteristic of the cannabis plant family. In fact, something called cannaflavin A has shown 30 times the anti-inflammatory properties that aspirin. So at some point, we hope to develop a high concentration cannaflavin A product, which we think will have tremendous therapeutic benefit. But anyway, we also see other things such as plant waxes, chlorophyll, etc., that all act very synergistically together to produce what we call this magnified entourage effect, and I'll have a little bit more of that later in the presentation. Now, if we could skip ahead one more slide for me. And then going back to the mid-1980s, we had a tremendous discovery in medical science. This discovery of the endogenous cannabinoid system. And this system has been found to be the largest self-regulatory system in the human body, governing a wide range of human activities, things such as mood, sleep, appetite, hormone production, the digestion of food, and even metabolism, all related back to the control of the endogenous cannabinoid system. It's very interesting to note that our bodies actually make endogenous cannabinoids. They're called anandamide and 2-AG, a long chemical name. It's been abbreviated with that. But these endogenous cannabinoids are generally very quickly degraded by enzymatic activity. And it's very interesting to note that plant-based cannabinoids can potentially supplement this very large self-regulatory system, the endogenous cannabinoid system. And these plant cannabinoids have a much longer shelf life in the human body. So moving forward, another slide. We'll see that we have this tremendous receptor network throughout the body. This what's called CB1 receptor, tremendously widely expressed neurotransmitter receptor site, well expressed in the brain and along the spinal column in the central nervous system. And then your CB2 receptor site, well expressed in the gut, the viscera, the internal organs, and helps to relate to the body's immune function. So here we have tremendous receptors for these cannabinoids, and certainly we believe this is the reason why so many people are drawn to the cannabis plant family, either the THC side, which again, 30 states now have medical cannabis laws on the books, and certainly a tremendously growing market segment, this CBD side, which really our company developed this whole CBD product category going back to the year 2012, having our first hemp-based CBD products on the market. Certainly the Hemp Industries Association here in the US reported last year that the US CBD market was worth $165 million. That's just in the US, and then worldwide, probably this is close to $500 million market. This was as of last year, and it's exponentially growing all the time. So we're certainly excited about the growth, the future, and potential applications. We're looking at both the botanical side as well as the pharmaceutical side for further study and research. Now, if we could bump ahead one more slide for me, just to let you know a little bit more about this amazing CB1 receptor site. That these neurotransmitter receptor sites in the brain are the most widely expressed of all the neurotransmitter receptor sites. In fact, if you take all the other neurotransmitter receptor sites, add them all together combined, the CB1 receptor sites and the receptor sites for cannabinoids outnumber all the other neurotransmitter receptor sites combined. So very interesting bit of science that certainly we have not been very well expressed with our studies. Even in medical school, this is not very well taught yet. Nonetheless, things are changing, and certainly over time, more and more doctors and medical professionals are being drawn to these products because not only do they work quite well for many individuals, but also have been shown to have an extremely safe profile. Now, bumping ahead one more slide, please. And additional cannabinoid receptor sites. We have, again, a tremendous amount of these receptor sites. We want to look at these what are called G protein coupled receptor sites. And here, these receptor sites control the function of about 800 human genes. And this represents about 4% of our overall genetic sequence. So certainly we've had some very interesting results with patients with some certain genetically inherited disorders, things such as CDKL5 epilepsy, named after the defective CDKL5 gene. Similarly, the FOXG1 epilepsy, named after the defective gene there. We've had significant reduction in seizure disorders among these patients where nothing else in the way of pharmaceutical medications or other interventions have worked too well. And certainly we're excited about this and certainly look forward to further research. Now, beyond this, there are, again, a huge number of other receptor sites very well accepting of cannabinoids, particularly vanilloid pain receptor sites. And of course, over the years, we've had good anecdotal evidence of many patients using cannabis for treating pain. Certainly in the US, we have this unfortunate opioid overdose epidemic. I was just reading a report today. White House Opioid Commission reports to President Donald Trump that we should declare a national emergency because this terrible opioid overdose death epidemic. They say 142 US citizens die every single day from opioid overdose. And every 3 weeks, this represents as many individuals passing from the face of the earth as happened on 9/11. So certainly very interesting to see some of the potential benefit for high-dose cannabinoid, low-dose opioid potential combination. I think that's maybe the great future of pain medication. But here we also see a tremendous number of receptor sites expressed throughout the body. Very interesting to see that this endogenous cannabinoid system actually is present from day 16 of gestation, and it really helps in the overall formation of the body's entire central nervous system. One of my favorite slides here, this one depicting the CB1 receptor sites in the brain. Certainly, we find CB1 receptor sites in the hippocampus as well as in the amygdala sections of the brain. These sections help to not only protect the brain cells from any chemical onslaught, things such as alcohol or other abuse, but also there's a new emerging concept in neurological medicine called neurogenesis, so the regeneration of new healthy brain cells, nerve cells, neurological pathways. And it seems that CBD's effect on both the hippocampus as well as the amygdala are part of this stem cell regeneration process. I should also mention, I was just talking about this opioid overdose death epidemic, that one of the regions of the brain kind of in the brainstem, the back of the neck where the head meets the spinal column, this brainstem region, the medulla oblongata and the pons, is also where you find a lot of the opioid receptor sites, but you don't find cannabinoid receptor sites. And in this part, of course, your opioids target these opioid receptor sites, but right in this region, you also have the body's autonomic breathing reflex. So we don't think about breathing, it just is something that naturally happens with us. We go to sleep at night, we continue to breathe, etc. But unfortunately, people who overdose on opioids, what happens is that this opioid medication causes the body to shut down this natural autonomic breathing reflex. And so the opioid overdose death patients just kind of forget to breathe. And it's very interesting to note that no one has ever died from an overdose of natural botanical cannabis. So right there, I think that speaks volumes. Hopefully in the future, we'll have a tremendous market for pain medication. Again, we think a high-dose cannabinoid, low-dose opioid, either in botanical form or pharmaceutical form. But nonetheless, the point to make here is that to supplement this very large self-regulatory system, the endogenous cannabinoid system, we believe taking plant-based cannabinoids is a great answer. And certainly we believe for most adult individuals, a good daily regimen, something that may be eventually with a recommended daily allowance, would be about 50 milligrams of CBD on a daily basis. And the more therapeutic regimen might be anywhere from 100 to 250 milligrams of CBD on a daily basis. So if I could have you advance one more slide for me, Andrew. So some facts about the endogenous cannabinoid system. The effect of the runner's high, interestingly enough, here what happens is during extreme exercise where people are running marathons, basically their bodies are producing cannabinoids at a very high and accelerated rate. And here the production of these cannabinoids is able to overcome the normal enzymatic degradation process, and thus we get this effect of the runner's high, where we not only have a release of the endogenous cannabinoid called anandamide, but also endorphins. And endorphins are feel-good chemicals that circulate throughout the body. It's interesting to note that endorphins do not cross the blood-brain barrier, so they give you kind of the body high, if you will. But the real runner's high, the head high, if you will, is due to this release of this endogenous cannabinoid anandamide. Very interesting to also note that CBD helps to actually interfere with this degradation process, and thus generally people who take CBD are generally having a little bit better level of anandamide throughout the body, this being the bliss chemical, if you will. In Sanskrit, anandamide means the bliss chemical, and thus people generally have a little bit better situation with their mood. And many of us, of course, we're all, we have this mood, anxiety disorders, and of course we have terrible ups and downs and the rest, and people who generally are on cannabinoids are able to stabilize their mood quite nicely. It's also interesting to note that mothers, when they're pregnant, the chemistry of the body changes, and also here the production of endogenous cannabinoids is at a very high level, again here overcoming this enzymatic degradation. And it's very interesting to note that mother's breast milk, the first food the mother feeds to the offspring, basically is very cannabinoid rich. So just some facts about the endogenous cannabinoid system. And maybe we can have you advance one more for me. And it was really interesting that in 2004, a great bit of research by Dr. Ethan Russo was published, and he was a very famous cannabis-based researcher. He was finding that with his patients, that many of these patients who had these very difficult to treat conditions, things such as fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue, migraine headache, inflammatory bowel syndrome, all seem to be very cannabinoid deficient. And thus he postulated that there's actually a syndrome now called clinical endocannabinoid deficiency. And it's very interesting that when Dr. Russo started giving his patients plant-based cannabinoids, they all came to a much higher level of overall health and wellness and overcame many of their challenges. It's kind of interesting to note that CBD helps to target the mitochondria of the cell, and this part of the cell, as we all might remember from our biology and chemistry days, the mitochondria is really the powerhouse of the cell that produces your ATP energy reserves. And ATP basically is the fuel that the cells burn for energy, and thus many patients who are fatigued have a very low level of this ATP energy in the body, and all of a sudden they start taking CBD, and all of a sudden their energy reserves come up to a much higher level, and suddenly they're back doing house chores or exercising or doing more strenuous activities, walking, hiking, running, etc., and overcoming challenges. And certainly this clinical endocannabinoid deficiency has been further studied and researched by Dr. Smith and the team, and it's definitely been found that this phenomenon does exist, and very interesting that many of us, because cannabis has been removed from our normal diets, hemp seed hasn't been along with us here in the US since 1937, so many of us, unfortunately, over time and generations, have become very cannabinoid deficient. All of a sudden, bringing this level of cannabinoid sufficiency back up to more normal levels, a lot of us overcome health challenges. Certainly, we believe this is going to extend lifespan, keep people healthy and fit for well beyond the normal life expectancy, what we currently believe. So maybe I could have you advance one more slide for me, Andrew. And it was very interesting that about 8-10 weeks ago now, Stanford University came out with an amazing study showing that the early onset of Alzheimer's and dementia is really due to an endogenous cannabinoid deficiency. And thus, we really think anyone who's in their 30s, 40s, 50s, what have you, and possibly predisposed towards Alzheimer's and dementia, what have you, if they just start taking a normal what we call a maintenance dose or a regular regimen of CBD products. We really think they can overcome a significant number of challenges, possibly putting this Alzheimer's situation to rest. I know pharmaceutical medications have been, for years trying to develop certain pharmaceutical meds that will address this unfortunate situation, but it just seems that when seniors start to go on this unfortunate downward progression of Alzheimer's and dementia, there's no coming back from this. There's just hadn't been any pharmaceutical med on the market able to reverse the unfortunate decline. They've, again, been researching for years. There was a big article, I believe it was maybe by CNBC, going back a couple of years, that Big Pharma is 0 for 190 tries, trying to develop some type of a medication to reverse this unfortunate decline. And potentially, we believe that these plant-based cannabinoids, particularly CBD, might be able to address this situation. And currently, Alzheimer's affects 5.4 million Americans, according to the Center for Disease Control, the CDC. This costs our healthcare system about $225 billion annually. And it's something that in projections going forward to the year 2050, between 15 and 20 million Americans are supposed to have Alzheimer's, and this might cost us as much as $1.1 trillion. Well, we believe we're sitting on possible answers for this, and certainly excited to do some further study and research. We've seen some interesting research here locally from Dr. David Schubert at the Salk Institute. Dr. Schubert, basically, his research shows that cannabinoids not only reduce inflammation in the brain, but also the buildup of this toxic protein called beta amyloid. And this basically is the hallmark or the characteristic of Alzheimer's disease. It's unfortunate that Dr. Schubert's ongoing study and research onto cannabinoid therapeutics for Alzheimer's have been stymied by the federal government, the DEA, et cetera, et cetera. But nonetheless, we'd like to believe we could pick up on some of Dr. Schubert's research. If we have to take it overseas, we'll probably wind up doing that. But nonetheless, we're very excited about the future here, because cannabinoids not only have shown to have this tremendous neuroprotective effect, but also this neuroregenerative type effect. So maybe I'll have you now bump ahead two more slides for me. The entourage effect, a very interesting concept in cannabis-based medication and the cannabis therapeutics. Here, we have a very nice 2-minute video by Dr. Sanjay Gupta on CNN. So if anyone wants to get a copy of the presentation, please let me know. I can easily email this or have it emailed to you through the support network. Basically here, the combination of all the plant cannabinoids, your terpenoids, other plant chemical compounds, all act synergistically together. All these 500 different chemical compounds, your cannabinoids, terpenoids, flavonoids, plant waxes, chlorophyll, everything together actually produces this magnified or entourage effect, this magnified effect that we believe is actually a little bit more powerful than even the pharmaceutical alternative, which only relies on a single active ingredient extraction, or sometimes a double active ingredient extraction. I'll illustrate this a little bit further in the presentation, but this entourage effect showing the natural botanical plant-based cannabis compounds and CBD, hemp CBD compounds to have tremendous therapeutic potential. So perhaps I'll have you bump ahead one more. And now to get on to this amazing dichotomy that we have within the U.S. government. Of course, on one side of the government, we have the DEA and law enforcement, which considers the marijuana plant, the cannabis plant, all to be a Schedule I federally controlled substance with no medicinal use. But on the research side of the government, the National Institutes of Health side, nothing could be further from the truth. This U.S. government patent, number 6630507, and by the way, this is the number you want to remember in cannabis-based science, 6630507, U.S. government patent that was awarded in October of 2003 to a research team led by Nobel Prize-winning laureate Dr. Julius Axelrod. The patent is titled Cannabinoids as Antioxidants and Neuroprotectants. And here it describes a wide range of therapeutic benefit. First, on your antioxidant, anti-inflammatory side, we see great benefit for your metabolic syndrome patients. These are your inflammatory patients, your heart disease, your cardiovascular risk patients, your diabetes patients, your rheumatoid arthritis patients, all have very elevated inflammatory markers. And we've seen many patients who've been on our product for a good 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks, all have their inflammatory markers come back down to a more normal level when they go in to see their doctor for their routine blood test. So that's really very, very interesting. And then, of course, we also see certain types of cancer, which we believe are basic errors of the human's metabolic processes, being able to be somewhat addressed by cannabis-based preparations. So certainly exciting. We believe there's a great future in research on this metabolic syndrome side. And then on the other side of the patent, the neuroprotective side of the patent, we see tremendous benefit for many of these neurodegenerative conditions. The US government patent mentions things such as benefit for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, PTSD, multiple sclerosis patients. And of course, with our anecdotal evidence, we've seen many great stories of success with children with these unfortunate epileptic seizure disorders. And here, we've seen many of these children overcome challenges and start to develop much more normally. It's also interesting to note that the US government patent mentions that the non-psychoactive cannabinoids, such as CBD, are much more preferable to use versus the psychoactive cannabinoids, because quite honestly, I'm pretty sensitive to THC. I mean, 5 milligrams of THC and boom, I'm out. I'd be snoozing here at my desk here for the next 8, 10, 12 hours. But this morning, I took 50 milligrams of CBD, and throughout the day, I probably took another 50 milligrams. I feel great. I'm alert. I'm awake. I'm cognizant, and I don't have the intoxicating side effects that the psychoactive cannabinoids can potentially foster. So very interesting research here at the US government level, and then throughout the research community throughout the globe, we see a tremendous amount of research going on into cannabinoids for a variety of different indications and the rest. So here's an abstract of the US government patent, just showing some of the potential benefits. I think we can bump ahead a slide or two and continue along here. We just have a couple of different parts highlighted. Now, certainly, in terms of traumatic brain injury, we mentioned Canna Life Sciences, one of our pharmaceutical development partners. Well, they have 2 license agreements from our National Institutes of Health to commercialize this US government 507 patent. And one of the interesting bits of science and research that have come out, well, I guess I should continue on Canna Life Sciences for a moment. 2 indications for use. The second indication is to develop a cannabis-based or cannabinoid-based medication to treat CTE, or traumatic brain injury, or basically what we call the industrial disease of the National Football League. And it was really, unfortunate that a study came out just recently by Boston University, Dr. Ann McKee, who's been looking at these unfortunate ex-NFL football players who have deceased, and examined the brains and trying to find, what's going on, why they're having such difficulties later in life. And it turns out that of the 111 brains that she studied, 110 have exhibited significant effects of this CTE, or this chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Excuse me just a second. So regarding traumatic brain injury, we see some really interesting research from UCLA Medical Center in Torrance. And here they looked at 446 young adults in the California area who were unfortunately involved in traumatic car injuries, had head injuries, and this traumatic brain injury. Very interesting research that was published in the American Surgeon, very well-respected medical journal. The research here showed, of course, these were young adults in California, so many of them had regular access to cannabis and cannabis-based products. And the regular cannabis users were found to be 80%, more likely to survive a traumatic brain injury. And this is presumably because they had that extra layer of neuroprotection that cannabis and cannabinoids can provide for an individual. So with this extra layer of neuroprotection, they were obviously able to survive this traumatic head injury. It'd be similar to maybe a second football helmet that surrounds and protects all your brain cells, if you will, that's always with you because, you know, kids are kids or think they're invincible and do some, you know, pretty wild things. Unfortunately, you know, my career as a physiotherapist, I did see a lot of these unfortunate, you know, young adults who had suffered unfortunate injuries and accidents. And many of these injuries were very debilitating. But certainly now, if we look at the future of cannabinoid-based therapeutics, if we bump forward one more slide, you know, looking at this National Football League and all the up-and-coming high school and college football players, well, we really believe that, you know, if they started taking a, you know, daily regimen of, you know, say 50 milligrams of CBD daily, you know, it's non-psychoactive, non-psychotropic, so it's very much more palatable for the parents to be giving this to the children. We really think that this is going to help significant brain injury situations. And certainly we believe that this may have some answers for the National Football League, where we're currently applying for a grant. So one of the great areas for you know, Kannaway reps and distributors to be moving forward in this, because over time our research, we believe, not only is going to have, you know, certain answers for Alzheimer's, but also possibly the National Football League and many other conditions where we believe our product is A, very cost effective, B, very safe, but C, very therapeutic as well. And that's a great combination moving forward for sure. So Andrew, if you could bump ahead one more for me. Thanks so much. So here, this is an interesting study and research by the Mayo Clinic, who've been looking at trends for the past 30 years in terms of neurological medicine. Basically what they found is that for every 10 calendar years of life, men of all ages have a 24% higher risk of developing Parkinson's disease. And, you know, it's just an unfortunate effect that many of these neurological diseases are significantly on the rise throughout our society. And if you could move one more slide forward, there are other neurological conditions, things such as Huntington's disease, et cetera, that also fall into this category. Now, of course, we're all subject to various things, you know, not on the, you know, cell phone talking, whatever, but still our bodies are acting as antenna. We're picking up radiation that's going through our bodies, and this is degrading our central nervous system. You know, our foods and agriculture are now, you know, all sprayed with various pesticides and chemicals, and even if you're eating organic, sometimes these residues come all the way over from the conventional fields to the organic fields. And of course, a lot of our products now in our grocery stores are all GMO and the rest. So this is all affecting and degrading our central nervous system. Our diet sodas, for example, all these artificial sugars, particularly aspartame, has been shown to be a, you know, proven neurotoxin. So again, our central nervous systems are under terrible onslaught. And what can we do? Well, there really hasn't been an answer till all of a sudden CBD does seem to have a huge potential benefit on the central nervous system. So getting back to our main company, Medical Marijuana Inc., we're certainly a company of firsts. We've had many firsts in our short history here. We're certainly the ones who developed this whole hemp CBD pipeline. We were the first to bring a hemp-based CBD cannabis-based product into a Latin American country legally. This was Brazil when they legalized our product for the treatment of refractory epilepsy. In Brazil, our product is still available today by doctor prescription. We currently serve many hundreds of families. We opened our markets to Mexico back in February of 2016 by developing a specially fully THC-free product. And currently, we still remain the only legal cannabis-based distributor in the country of Mexico. Very exciting work there. In Puerto Rico, we also have 12 product registrations. So certainly, we're you know, excited about this emerging company that we have, and we really believe the future looks very bright, not only on the botanical side, but also on the pharmaceutical side as well. Andrew, if you can move forward. One more, just to illustrate this product that we've developed specially for the Mexico markets in our hemp meds group. This is called RSHO, Real Scientific Hemp Oil X. RSHO X, it just means it's X, or it's THC free. In Canaway, this is now available as a product labeled as pure CBD oil, but it's just the same formulation here. And since it's fully THC free, this is the first cannabis-based product that would actually qualify for world anti-doping standards. And currently, we're working with the World Anti-Doping Commission to be able to actually have our product fully registered with them as something that these professional sport and Olympic athletes could all take without fear of failing a drug test. And over the coming months, we'll have much more in terms of clinical research coming out for you. We're just about to start on 3 or 4 very significant studies. We've already had a couple of nice studies done down in Mexico. We're going to have some early stage preclinical pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic research available for everyone, and we look forward to many journal papers and publications that should be coming over the next months and years. So if you could move ahead one more for me. We've also seen a wonderful cannabis-based physician, Dr. Donald Abrams, who has really had some very interesting clinical study and research with low-dose vaporized cannabis products. And Dr. Abrams is actually chief of hematology and oncology at University of California at San Francisco's Medical Center. So he actually runs their whole cancer division. And post-chemotherapy, he sees patients who have all kind of different conditions and the rest. And many of these patients, he can prescribe 6 different medications, all with differing, side effects and drug interactions, or he can just prescribe a medical cannabis. And recently he's come on board to our Axon Biotechnologies group as on the scientific advisory board as a member here. And we're now getting him educated on CBD because he really believes that there's some tremendous benefit for these post-chemotherapy patients to recover health, wellness, and vitality in a very accelerated manner by using our CBD products. So if you could bump ahead one more for me, Andrew, we will see that Dr. Abrams has, just all these different conditions. Chemotherapy patients all have pain issues, they have sleep, they've got nausea, vomiting, they've got loss of appetite, and they've got depression, all to combat. And really to be able to do so in a very effective manner, we're quite excited about some research that hopefully will be starting in Mexico very soon on post-chemotherapy recovery with our CBD products. But nonetheless, around the globe, there's a huge amount of research going on in terms of cannabinoids. Certainly in the US, there's a British pharmaceutical company trying to get US FDA approval on a CBD-based epilepsy medication. We've basically had some research in Mexico on our own botanical product, and I'll compare that for you in a little bit. In Israel, they're looking at metabolic syndrome as well, which I've mentioned earlier. And then also on the bone diseases, accelerated healing from broken bones, osteoporosis, etc. And there are a couple of startup young pharmaceutical development companies here in the US that are partnered with Israeli research groups to look at these rare bone disorders, again, because CBD is not only able to target the mitochondria of the cell, but also allows for better nutrient absorption to come in across the cell membrane. So CBD actually changes the shape and orientation as well as the permeability of the cell, allowing for more nutrients to come in, particularly calcium, and this has a great effect on bone and bone disorders. We're also seeing a tremendous research in Brazil, for example, on Parkinson's disease. Here in the US, I mentioned Dr. David Schubert, as well as Stanford University, researching cannabinoids for Alzheimer's disease. We've seen some very interesting early stage preclinical research here in the US in cancer. This is from Dr. Sean McAllister at California Pacific Medical Center, basically showing that CBD switches off a defective gene that causes the metastasis of cancer, particularly that of breast cancer. Also, Dr. Robert McCallop from University of South Carolina showing that CBD, when he puts CBD in petri dishes with leukemia cells, basically that CBD causes a programmed cell death of these leukemia cells by activating certain enzymatic pathways. So that's certainly quite exciting. And then here in the US, our Canna Life Sciences is looking at things such as CTE. Now, again, I mentioned earlier that Stanford University study shows that an endocannabinoid or endogenous cannabinoid deficiency really is the root cause of this Alzheimer's and dementia. And hopefully we can take this, diseased, unhealthy brain on one side and move that back a little bit more towards the healthy, more normal side where we have better neurological functioning. Of course, this needs to be proven out through science and research. Nonetheless, we're on the way, and certainly some early stage research locally here in San Diego by Dr. David Schubert seems to point in that direction. So your company will be moving forward with some research on this end, hopefully in the next 12 months, and look forward to updating you as far as our clinical development goes there. And if we could bump one more slide. Andrew, of course, this is somewhat of a controversial space. And, of course, we all have this stigma that we've been faced with since the 1937 Marijuana Tax Act and the unfortunate war on drugs. Certainly, great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds, says Albert Einstein. And certainly that's what we're facing today. But we're up for the challenge. And certainly we believe those of you who are coming on board and seeing some great benefit with our product will feel similarly about this. Now, just a couple of products to give you a little bit of a background here. We've remade our hemp vape, and I know a lot of you think this, vaporization product is a kids type of thing, and sure, it's kind of interesting for the kids to play around with, but truly we believe there's some very interesting medicinal benefit. We believe that the vaporization and the inhalation goes directly into the cardiopulmonary system and thus more directly into the bloodstream, bypasses the gastrointestinal tract, which has certain effects. And many people, of course, take pharmaceutical medications. It goes through the digestive process, winds up being metabolized by the liver, which then can cause a tremendous amount of side effects. So interestingly enough, we see a researcher at Temple University looking to develop most every pharmaceutical medication in terms of vaporization, again, just because of the rapid uptake. And we've remade our hemp vape now. We have 100 milligrams of CBD in this, along with 4 terpenoids. And I think there's a great potential for therapy, as well as just kind of a relaxing type of application here. And certainly when you have 100 milligrams in the new cartridge and refill cartridges available, I think you get more puff for your buck, if you will. Now, the next slide, I think I talk a little bit about this researcher from Temple University, but one characteristic of all of us humans is that we all breathe, and certainly everyone from young children to elderly adults can breathe our vaporization type of product. We're looking to develop a healthy vape and have this fully tested out. But research from Great Britain shows that your e-cigarettes are significantly, maybe 90 times or more, less carcinogenic than your regular cigarettes. The nice thing is our new hemp vape product doesn't have any glycerin propol or any other harmful additives and the rest, and certainly we're excited to bring this product forward. So perhaps I'll bump forward one more slide and look at some of the immediate uptake effects. And, again, this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier about this great researcher from Temple University looking to develop medicine through vaporization technology. We think we're kind of on the forefront of that, and certainly look forward to more research in the coming months. And then once again for me, Andrew, just one more slide. So here's our hemp vape product, and certainly we contain 4 of the terpenes, alpha pinene, which comes from the pine tree, pine seeds, myrcene, limonene, linalool, very interesting terpenoids with very interesting therapeutic benefits. I think the next couple of pages I have a little bit of breakdown on each of these terpenoids. So if you want to bump forward for me, we can look at alpha pinene. And here's some of the characteristics. Basically, it's a bronchodilator, has very strong anti-inflammatory properties. And we're quite excited to have this in our hemp vape. And the next one for me, Andrew. We have your myrcene, which basically is a very sedating, relaxing, anti-inflammatory, again, antispasmodic, antibacterial terpene, and has, again, a very nice sedative properties. And if we go one more, I think we're on limonene, the next one, which basically comes from the citrus plant family, has a very strong effect on the central nervous system and on the immune system, really stimulates the immune system quite nicely, and basically is found in your citrus. And then the final one, the linalool, is really interesting, comes from the lavender plant family. GW Pharmaceuticals, their approved product in European markets called Sativex contains a good amount of this terpenoid called linalool, and certainly we see some of the antidepressant, anti-epileptic, anti-inflammatory, and sedative type of properties with it. And going further, we also have some new products in Canaway, the essential oils, which are made from terpenes that you'll normally find in the cannabis plant family. We have an immunity product with a limonene, an energy product with beta-carotene, and a tranquility product with linalool. So certainly these terpenoids are very common to the cannabis plant family. We now have these available in essential oils. People can utilize these for therapeutic benefits. Certainly really enjoy the tranquility product. We see here, let's go through the immunity product with the limonene. Again, aids in digestion, certainly has antifungal properties, and certainly really stimulates the body's immune system. Our next product, I believe, essential oil for energy. This is with beta-carotene, and certainly this has a very good stimulating effect on the body. And this is something that your beta-carotene is a characteristic of black pepper and cloves. Certainly has some wonderful antioxidant, anti-inflammatory properties, and potentially some diabetes benefits as well. So that's our essential oil for energy. And then our tranquility product with the linalool, really quite interesting. We've seen some people report to me that, for sleep in the evening, of course, they take their CBD, but also rub our topical application salve with a few drops of this essential oil basically on their neck, this tranquility oil, and they have reported amazing benefits with their sleep. So anyone who's looking for better sleep, certainly this is an interesting product for you all to try. Well, I know there's a lot more we can cover, but this basically gives us all a good playing field on the ground floor. Certainly some great things happening in terms of research. We're very excited about some of the great stories. My gosh, we have some amazing stories just in Orange County with Andrew, people around the country, Damien, of course, down in Louisiana with some amazing stories, and all our other fantastic team leaders. My gosh, every Canaway event I go to, I'm just more and more excited because I'm hearing all these, fantastic stories. I can't say that we have a product that works for 100% of the people, 100% of the time, but there are a lot of people getting a lot of benefit out there, and certainly I encourage you to take a good hard look at these hemp CBD products. We're really doing some great things here, and I think our research over the coming months is going to prove it out for sure. I know in Mexico, I didn't get to show the studies or the slides we had here in the presentation, but I have to say that we've had our product basically studied and researched for epilepsy, and we had 2 studies by very prominent medical doctors down there. One, Dr. Carlos Aguirre, who did a study showing an average seizure reduction with our product of 67%. Now, the pharmaceutical version is getting a 36.5 average reduction in seizure disorders. So the natural botanical product getting about twice the results of the pharmaceutical product. Now, also on the pharmaceutical side, 30% of the children had adverse side effects to the point they had to drop out of the studies. On the botanical side, 0 side effects. And the only real side effects were that parents reported that, oh my gosh, children's cognition is better, their emotion is better, their sleep, their appetite is better, they're developing more normally, they're communicating better. Very interesting results. And then a second study by a very prominent neurosurgeon, Dr. Saul Garza Morales out of Monterrey, Mexico, basically showing that his research showed an 84% average reduction in seizure disorders, again, versus 36.5% for pharmaceutical interest. And Dr. Garza, his normal course of intervention, children who fail pharmaceutical medications have this type of epilepsy called refractory epilepsy, and his basic resort had been brain surgery, cutting out parts of children's brains to help try to control the seizure disorders. But now, since he's got with our RSHOX or our pure CBD oil product, he says, I will never do another surgery again until I've given a child a full course of treatment with RSHOX or pure CBD oil. I think that speaks volumes to the potential benefit for this product. Dr. Garza just had a wonderful presentation at the International Epilepsy Congress in Tijuana, Mexico. He'll be presenting early September at another International Epilepsy Congress in Barcelona, Spain. We look forward to being with him there. Hopefully we can get a group of Canaway potential representatives over in Europe together for a special presentation that Dr. Garza can do over in Europe along about the time of this Congress. So we're very excited about the international expansion as well. And Andrew, I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to be in front of your family of people today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Titus. What a pleasure, guys. Don't want to take up too much of your time. Again, thank you so much, sir. And everyone, you have a blessed night. It will be recorded. I'll post this later on this evening. And thank you, Dr. Titus, and I'll see you soon, sir, in Arizona.
We look forward to it so very much. Can't wait to the big event in Arizona. See y'all soon.
See y'all soon.